Hello again. Here I'm back for you to present another case of fish diseases, again from my location on my vacation home in the south of Spain, Andalusia, Casares. And this case was very special, which I didn't encounter every day. It's a pufferfish, the Dichomycetere. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, but the Dichomycetere used to be Tetraodon, and we found worm infections. Well, worm infections are always spectacular to see. And the fish were in the tank. You can see some swimming here. You see some are very skinny. They look exhausted. You can nearly say deformed because of they are wasting away, and some had extra growths, deformations. Here you see on the next video, you see here on the top of the head here next to the eye here on this fish, you see the bump sitting there. Well, we're going to examine that fish and see what is bothering that fish, what is troubling. The fish did survive quite a long time. A few died, but not everyone so quickly. So for us, such a case is, as a fish doctor, it's unusual. So let me show you what we did. So this puffer, the Dichomycetere ocellatus, it used to be called Tetraodon ocellatus some time ago. We found, after opening the bump of the eye, we found two large worms. Looks like nematodes or roundworms. So here they are, the two large red strings. We just pulled out on that extra growth behind the eye. Something special. So we put them here on the plate, and then we will look at it on the microscope. But those were two large worms which are moving around. And in the microscope, we saw inside two worm. This is one worm, one body. And inside, there were all little babies, you can call it, baby worms already, well, ready to spread, to move out of the fish or and causing other infections. And after the dissection of the fish, we also found internally, here you see the white lump here. Well, we put it on the plate, was another worm. And inside, also more large nematodes we found. And we pulled out some red worms, some yellowish worms, so many different nematodes. We all pulled out of the internal body of this pufferfish. And these babies look like Microfilariae. That's the scientific name of this type of nematode, which is very unusual that this type of family of nematodes would occur in fish. I haven't seen so much or hardly any description of that in scientific literature. Maybe it's the first case, I don't know, because I'm not in the science of discovering the new species of worm infections or trying to describe exactly what species it is. As long as I know it's a nematode, where it's found, and suggests how we can solve the problem and treat the fish accordingly. So these babies could have been Microfilariae, which belongs to, this worm belongs to the FILARIOIDEA. That's a kind of round worm. Here you see another picture. You see how many small, tiny worms are moving around and yes, causing a risk for continuous infection. So this is not a beautiful case of infection. And of course, the treatment of such a fish is not so easy because we don't know much about it, but we know it's a roundworm. We know it's a nematode, maybe from the family FILARIOIDEA. And the bad suffering fish, like I always try to recommend, if the fish are really suffering badly, a medication will hardly help. It will even put the fish in more suffering. So you better put gently asleep, and you can use for that Narcomore Plus from Aquarium Münster, for example. And many fish from the same collecting site, which is probably a certain river or part of a lake, they can be infected because of the contact they have in nature with possible parasites. And some can survive for a long time. You don't know. It depends how heavily they are infected and how strong their resistance is. You can try to treat the fish which are still looking healthy or pretty good shape with praziquantel or a similar anthelmintic drug. The origin could be infected insects in the river. The fishermen should avoid this collecting site. So that's a message you can give to your supplier. Usually those worms, they can spread through insects in the aquarium, but you have as an intermediate host or in nature. It's not like the roundworm Camellanus that it spreads directly from fish to fish. So it still needs an intermediate host. But you might have some insects in your aquarium, which can be a host or intermediate host to continue the spreading in the aquarium. So this is one of my cases I studied for you, and I show many more in my Patreon channel, where you can get your training on the fish diseases. And all about training is about looking at fish diseases, looking at what we found, share the findings, and share the opportunities for treatment. And this will all help us to become a better fish care keeper. Thank you for watching.